Wonderful people, it's me, John Lahey, and I'm here. I am joined today by my business partner, Nathan Burch from Velum Mortgage. Nathan, welcome.
Thank you, John.
And today we want to talk about, what's going on in the mortgage industry right now? What's going on with the rates?
I would say erratic and very volatile. There are so many outside influences that we're seeing affecting rates right now, and it's just hard to actually track it all down. The number one thing affecting rates, though, is inflation. And while we all had a good run, interest rates being in the 2s and 3s from the Fed policy from COVID, it had to end, and we're now paying for that.
I mean, the 2s and 3s, that was wonderful. But we all knew that wasn't going to be like that forever. So this is really from the perspective of the professionals. We're not really surprised that where the rates are to, having the rates increase. That's not really a surprise, is it?
Not at all. It had to happen. And I think actually the Federal Reserve, and this is different than what people read about, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. That's the short-term interest rates. They call that the Fed funds rate. And that's what affects prime rate and, like for home equity lines of credit and credit card interest rates. What we're really talking about is how the Federal Reserve affected long-term interest rates. And they did that by buying bonds. When no one else was buying bonds in COVID, they bought them all. And it's everything comes back to supply and demand. So there's literally there's not much of a return that was needed to be paid to the federal government from them buying everything, pushed rates down, and it works, and it brought our economy back.
So for buyers who are thinking right now, because I'm sure a lot of buyers they're connecting back with you, they're getting everything rechecked because rates have changed, maybe from the first time they spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. Obviously rates have increased. What are those conversations right now? What kind of advice are you giving those buyers?
Well, it's so volatile that, we just don't know. It's almost scary, John, actually, to quote a rate on a Friday and have a contract be ratified and something happens, big news on Monday morning that has an inflationary effect. And that could almost literally cause interest rates to go up for the consumer 0.25% between Friday and Monday. So really scary. I think that there's some significant risk also for consumers who are buying new construction, and there are delays in how that delivers into the market because most of the time they're not locked, and there's some real interest rate risk there.
Now, what about the buyers who are saying, because I'm sure you've heard this before, Nathan, let me just wait. Let me wait this out. What do you say to those buyers?
I understand that the market is scary and being so volatile and watching it. And it's hard to understand that what is happening, is it going to go down? And I hear that a lot from clients that, hey, I think the market's going to go down. I think housing prices are going to go down. I don't think so, actually, especially for first-time home buyers who are really concerned about this and trying to build wealth and using their, a good bit of their cash that they have to buy a home. And I just tell a lot of my clients, like, listen, you're buying a $500,000 townhouse. Do you see any of those being built new? You don't. It's impossible. You're really in a sweet spot in the market. But I think it's also important to understand that this is a long-term play. Real estate has always gone up long-term. But on top of that, you're buying a home to live in that gives you safety and security for you and your family. And you're taking out the risk of someone raising your rent every single year, or the landlord getting tired of renting and saying, hey, in 3 months, I'm selling it, you got to go. It's really about controlling your destiny. And the side effect, I think, of this is creating wealth while providing a safe environment for you and your family.
I totally understand. So I heard from my agents that you have a presentation or some kind of spreadsheet that shows and that can show to potential home buyers the cost of waiting. Can you share that?
Yeah, absolutely. I use a tool that I use with everyone. Is it you have me okay to share my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, let me, I have a big screen, so I'm going to share just a portion of it. There we are. So what this is, John, I use a tool. I mean, I can talk about this a lot, and I can tell people and relate in my head that, hey, I think it's still good to buy a home. But this is my business. I do it every single day. And even when I talk to realtors, it's very hard for them to conceptualize or even see how this really works. So I got this tool. Some loan officers use it. I think good loan officers use it, by the way. It's called Mortgage Coach. And it's a way to compare sort of where you are now in a couple different scenarios. And I use this in many different analysis. I do a lot of analysis here to like, hey, what if the appraisal comes in short? How much does that cost me? And in this case, I'm using it to say, what is it going to take? What's going to happen if I wait? Do I lose a lot of money? Is that going to make any difference to me in, basically payments and stuff like that? And I do think there's considerable risk here. Again, we want to buy a house because we want to live in a place, and it's not like buying a stock. We're buying a place to live in. We're not buying Google to live in, and we're not doing anything like that. This is a place to live in. So what I did here is I took this column here, and it compares, what I think may be an average person renting for $2,400 a month and maybe $10 a month in like renter's insurance. And then it's interesting, John, because I actually have been using this a lot. And this scenario right here was in from January of 2022. And back then, the interest rate for a 30-year fix was 3.5% with 1 point. 1 point is 1% of the loan amount. That's basically we're buying down the rate. I just happen to have that in there. I am quoting, I typically don't quote points, John, when I talk to consumers, especially on primary residences, because it's just not worth it. However, the spread and what's going on in the market is so volatile that I'm always quoting a point now because I think it makes a lot of difference, but I do the same analysis for that. But so what you see here is everything with 1 point discount buying down the rate. So January 2022, we were at 3.5%. Today, 5.25%. Again, remember, this is a snapshot in time. Rates are volatile. But this total payment with an estimate of taxes, insurance, and HOA of $50, look at that difference, $28.27 a month compared to $34.81. So yeah, it's significant. And the rate went up 3.5 to 5.25. I think it's very conservative to say, and maybe you can tell me, that a home worth 500 grand in January is absolutely worth 530,000 now.
Absolutely.
So that difference there is pretty significant. I'm going to jump around a little bit, and well, I'll actually do that later. But what if you wait more and you're concerned as a consumer out buying a house that, hey, I think maybe the market's plateauing a little bit, so we can still use that number. We'll use 530 here for if we wait a little bit longer. What if the rate goes up to 5.625%? And then look at the payment difference. It goes from $34.81 to $35.99. Now, you can cut out Starbucks and do that, but it is a significant amount of money. And then over time, which is how we value real estate, it is really significant. But what if it, the difference between this column here and this column is really significant. We don't know where rates are going. I think they're going up. And it could be even more is really what this model says.
All the projections are that the rates is going to continue to increase.
Yeah. Every analyst, every economist basically missed what was going on.
Yeah.
And it's basically the Federal Reserve, they're trying to scare inflation away, not only with policy, but then they're going out and talking about it too. And it's causing these wild swings in the market that nobody has ever seen. Then on top of that, not to be too technical, but war usually causes a flight to quality, meaning people leave the stock market and they go into buying bonds, which would mean rates go down. This war between Ukraine and Russia is very significant, and what it does is how it affects the world. Ukraine being the #3 wheat producer in the country, and then also Russia cutting off gas supplies and basically no one buying that. Russia's 10% of the world's gas supply, even though we don't use them. We're in global supply and demand. That is an inflationary effect, which is having a worse, an increase on rates. Basically, it feels like inflation and causes rates to go up also.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never seen this before. It's, I've been through 5-6 cycles in my 21 years in the business, and this is very unique.
It seemed like a lot of different factors just lining up at the same time, from inflation to the war to supply and demand and
Yeah.
yeah.
So the real thing is when I come down here, we net monthly payments. This is one thing that actually I'm going to stop back.
Okay.
You know, if you're buying a house for $530,000 and the interest rate is 5.25%, people forget that just living there and using this utility value of your money to live in a place to provide you safety and security, that's great. But at the same time, you're actually paying down your loan, just like you pay down your car loan over time. In the first month, you're paying down your principal $577 on this. This is kind of like a forced savings. So even if your house doesn't appreciate, you're still building equity and still creating wealth by paying down your loan while you live in the property that provides you the safety and security. The other thing I always show people, which is enormous, is that they can't quantify this cash outlay that they're doing for rent.
Gotcha.
Yes, it's nice to be flexible. You know, rents, I'm using a 3% rental increase per year. I think that's actually very conservative, especially around the DC area. In 5 years, if a consumer paid, you know, $2,000, $2,100, what did I say, $2,400 a month, and it went up just 3% per year, in 5 years, they've spent $153,000 in rent to get them
just
nothing.
in 5 years.
5 years. 5 years. That's it.
Somebody said, you know, rental is 100% interest rate to the landlord.
Yeah,
so
your return
this is just in
zero.
5 years, 153,000 in 5 years. That's crazy, because most people don't think of things in terms of what you're showing us today.
Yeah, it's hard for them to visualize this. And I think, you know, there are great loan officers in my industry, and there are some not so good loan officers. Like every industry, there's a varying expertise. And, you know, I like to counsel people. I want them to feel good. This is the biggest decision in their life. And honestly, if I didn't have fun doing this and didn't think I was helping people, it wouldn't be a job to do. That's what drives me. I make, you know, a great living, but I want to help people, you know, increase wealth and own a home. That's what I do.
So before we continue, if somebody who's watching this today and they're like, wow, I wish I can reach out to Nathan and have a consultation with him, what's the best way to reach you?
Very easy. My website is nathanburch.com. It's my first name, last name, burch.com. I'll put that up here, you know, and my phone number is 703-350-4000. That's direct to me. I know it sounds like a big company, but I bought that number just to make it easy to track. But here's my website, nathanburch.com, forwards over to here, and that's how you get me. I'm always available. Yeah, so basically the rest of this chart, John, says that, you know, yes, you're losing 153,000, but here's the other important part that, again, demonstrating the effect of paying your loan down over time is that even if your property doesn't go up in value at all in 10 years, I never seen that happen. If you just pay down your loan according to schedule, you have $39,527 in equity in your property. I mean, that's enormous. The delta between losing 153 and paying down your loan almost 40 grand.
That's just in 5 years.
That's 5 years. That's right.
That's not taking into account the appreciation of the value of the home. We're just talking about of the principal automatically.
Yeah, it's just you're paying it down 5 years. You're right. I missed that because I have a 10-year chart here. Here's the other chart that's interesting, and this is again a really good demonstration of the cost of waiting. Is that, you know, in 10 years you would have paid $331,000 over that in rent, which is enormous. If you would have bought in January in 10 years, now this is starting 10 years from when we say it, it's a little off these charts, but 120 months, you would have paid $158,000 in interest. Now waiting and the interest rate goes up, now you're paying $256,000 in interest, basically. Like it's $100,000 over 10 years by waiting. You can never time the market. It is what it is, but basically it is, you just never know. You might as well jump in now. What if the rate went up to 5.625%? And the difference there is $255,000 in interest over 10 years versus $274,000. And that's, by the way, what people refinance for. They would refinance to save $20,000 over 10 years and that payment difference. So it's really significant. I'm going to show you one other thing, John, just by changing this analysis here, and it will take a little bit of time to update here, but what happens to your net worth and what happens to you if you buy a house? So obviously your net worth in 10 years by buying a home, if you rent, it's 0% return on renting.
Right.
Now, net worth in 10 years, I used 2% growth per year. And I think that is absolutely conservative when it comes to real estate, especially in our area.
Right.
In 10 years, if your house goes by 2% per year and you pay down your loan just according to schedule, you would have had $241,000 in equity in January at the 3.5%. Now, here's the difference.
Wow.
You'd still have $233,000 in equity if you did it right now in 10 years.
Okay.
Okay. So there's always an opportunity to build this equity. And if I click this more info button here, you'll see, that we talked about a $530,000 house. It absolutely makes sense and actually seems conservative that a $530,000 house in 10 years would be worth $646.
Absolutely. And that's just using a 2% increase.
2% increase. That's right. And think about that, John.
Very low in this area.
Yeah. Developers can't put a shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
And especially in 10 years, it's only going up, 646 for a value in 10 years seems very, very conservative. And your loan balance in 10 years would be 412, and that leaves $233,000 in equity. So literally you've created wealth for you and your family by living in a house. And that's just why homeownership is beautiful. And I mean, I think that our country is very unique in the way it's set up. The government has given us tax incentives and they really incentivize people with the bond market and stuff.
Yeah.
They want people to create wealth by owning homes. Not everyone can own a home, but should be everyone's goal.
Wow. I love having the visuals because a lot of us are visual people, and just hearing numbers compared to now being able to see in charts. And this is very useful. Again, if any one of our listeners or viewers wants to connect with you, what's the best way to reach you again?
So my phone number, direct dial, you can call and text me. And actually I've changed it up a little bit. My team helps me if I'm out of town, 703-350-4000. And then my website, my name is Nathan Burch, B-U-R-C-H, and it's nathanburch.com is my website. There's a link on there. And I'll do this for every single one of my clients. I think it's really important to educate people, to let them know, and also make sure that I walk my clients through every single line item, line by line, so they understand every single thing, what charge there is, how it got there, how it's calculated, not to just think that, the lender had this big charge. There's, creating escrow accounts and title company fees and stuff. And those are all significant portions of the cost.
That's wonderful, man. And thank you so much for making time for us today and just showing us the cost of waiting, because a lot of buyers and some buyers have been waiting all year or 2 years just because prices of homes have increased, and they're like, we'll wait. And now you just showed us really the true cost of waiting. And now compared to January till today, what the cost of waiting is. And I know some of our viewers are thinking, well, maybe I should just wait until rates go back down. Thank you so much for showing this to us. Hopefully this is going to be helpful for a lot of our buyers, a lot of our clients, a lot of our viewers who are wondering, what should I wait? Should I buy now? And I'm sure this gives a little more clarity to those viewers.
John, let me close with one final story, okay?
Yep.
And this is me personally. I bought my house in 2005 at the absolute height of the market. 2005 was much different. People could get loans without proving anything, and that's why that market went down. I paid $667,000 for my house in 2005. 1 year later, it was worth 520. And I had a real wow, I'm in the business and this kind of hurts, right? But I thought about it and thought my rent would be more than my mortgage. And then I lived there. My kids grew up there. They went to elementary school. They learned to ride a bike on the street in front of me. They got junior high school now. I love my house. I put $300,000 into it, improving it to modernize it and make it my home. And now it's worth $950,000. And some people might say that doesn't make sense. You got $967 in it. It's worth $950. But I lived there for all these years. It's been my home that my family loves. And then, by the way, because I paid the mortgage down, I have $500,000 in equity. So it still worked for me.
It's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Plus all the memories.
That's right.
Priceless. It's
That's
just
the
like
important part.
priceless. You
Yep.
can't put money, you can't quantify that. Hey guys, hey Nathan, thank you so much for being here. Guys, nathanburch.com if you want a free consultation with Nathan and see, you know, what you can qualify for, what the cost of waiting is for you to wait this out. Connect with Nathan. He'll spend time with you, he'll educate you. And that's what I love about you. You'll spend time with our buyers and you actually listen to them, educate them, give them a full consultation, make sure they know what they're getting themselves into, and versus if they're going to wait. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the partnership.
My pleasure.